your exclusive gateway to Tobago, broadcasting the beauty of this island paradise to the world.
Put a smile on your face, you're moving from the place. Good morning, good morning, morning, good morning, morning.
Good morning, viewers, and welcome. This is your Tobago Updates morning show. It's good to be with you again. We trust that you had a good start to your morning so far, and we're here just to make it a little bit better. I am joined this morning by Luke James Trim. Good morning, Luke.
Good morning, Alex. Good morning, Tobago. Good morning, everybody. Yes, I am back in a way, in a sense, just for the week. Hopefully next week you're going to see me again, but good morning, everyone. It feels so good to return to my second home. Alex, so what's been happening in this space thus far?
Oh, well, quite a lot has been happening. We've had quite a bit of good news. I remember yesterday we were talking about the fact that one of our long-standing educators was honored, thankfully, while he's alive, for a lot of good work that he has done. And we see Tobago kind of preparing itself to head for the budget presentation by the Tobago House of Assembly. Everybody's kind of looking forward to what Secretary of Finance Petal Daniel is going to present. So we have quite a bit of stuff happening around us.
Okay, great. And I'm also looking forward to when Secretary Petal, updates us on the financial health of the island and, the steps that will be taken to really trust us into development. So Alex, I think that this week and this month and this quarter, I think that we have a lot of exciting events to be looking forward to, especially as we ease into Tobago Heritage too. I think that's a period that everyone looks forward to.
And interestingly enough, not only people who are domiciled in Tobago, but quite a lot of people who live off island always look forward to the Tobago Heritage Festival.
But before we start to rinse everybody ears, I think we have to give them the news in 90
so
seconds.
Let's do that.
All right, everyone, this is your news in 90 seconds. A police officer has been taken into custody following a volatile police-involved shooting in Bloody Bay yesterday. The victim, identified as Osei Murray, sustained a gunshot wound to the stomach during the encounter. Murray remains hospitalized in stable condition. Senior Division investigators confirm that while the officer is currently detained, the exact circumstances surrounding the shooting remain unclear at this hour. A post-mortem examination has revealed that 12-year-old Mercedes Lane died from severe blunt force injuries to her body. Her grandfather had reportedly placed her in a vehicle at his Rancho Coronado home on Saturday for transport to her residence, but she never arrived. Following a missing persons report and search, an oil worker discovered her partially nude body face down near a well on Sunday morning. Crime scene teams are treating the fresh autopsy findings as a critical component of their ongoing homicide investigation. And finally, 2 women have been handed prison terms in the Scarborough Magistrates Court. Nicole Jordan and Marissa Finley were sentenced to 18 and 7 months simple imprisonment respectively, following a Tobago Divisional Task Force drug bust. The joint operation yielded over 474 grams of cocaine, carrying an estimated street value of more than $220,000. Senior Magistrate Alicia Shankar strongly commended the state's main witness, PC De Freitas, for their evidentiary presentation. Tune in at 6:30 p.m. for the full newscast. And this was your news in 90 seconds.
Quite a bit happening.
Quite a bit is happening
Quite a bit
indeed.
happening. You know, I always look forward to good news in the news. It was a little bit sparse this morning. Yesterday we had a discussion with trying to remember acting ASP Sterling, and she was, you know, encouraging the society to support and partner with the police. And I am mindful that every time there's an incident of this nature that we saw in the news, it kind of leaves a bad taste in the mouth. We don't know all the details, but it's at the very least a bit disconcerting to hear police officers involved in these kinds of activities, and it unfortunately always leaves us thinking that something else could have been done by the police, because we expect so much more of them. We want to encourage all of our citizens, both the police and the civilians, to be mindful of how you interact. There are other ways that disputes can be settled, and we don't want to have a situation where we have constant violence taking place between the police and the general public, because it's going to lead us in a bad place.
And I agree with you, Alex, because I think within the past few weeks, or the past few months actually, I think the conversation surrounding how police officers interact with civilians has really been a hot topic. You know, even in the sister isle, Trinidad, we saw what happened with the whole Joshua Samaru incident. Now we're seeing that even recently with the leaked recording in the magistrate's court there in Tobago, it really makes us question, you know, how effective the police force is.
And we don't want to be asking those questions.
We should not be asking those questions. We really should not be asking those questions, because we don't want it to be a case where the public trust in the police service is at
too severely eroded. But we're hoping that things are going to improve as we go along. So let's look for some good news. Let's head viewers to the celebratory segment of this morning's program. We go over to our birthday celebrations. And first up for today's birthday celebrates Kelisha Douglas. Happy birthday to you, Kelisha. We hope that today's as bright as your smile, as bright as this picture presents you, and that it starts a new year for you that's full of purpose and favor from God. Happy birthday.
Next on our list, we're sending our birthday greetings to Mr. Gavin Richards, also known as Sparrow. Happy birthday to you, and I hope you enjoy your day today.
Next in the list, Lonnie Joseph. Happy birthday to you, Lonnie. We hope that you have a blessed day and that it begins for you a new year full of purpose and blessings. Happy birthday.
We're sending our birthday greetings also to Mr. Glenville Wilson. More life, more health, and more strength to you.
It's followed by Todd Dinoon. Happy birthday to you, Todd. We hope you have a great day and that the new year begins for you full of life and purpose.
And last but certainly not least on our list, we're sending our birthday greetings to Miss Micaiah Bacchus. A blessed and productive birthday to you.
Happy birthday to all of you from Near Tobago Updates family. For those of you who did not make it on and you have a birthday today, we do wish you a happy birthday, and we trust that it's going to be an enjoyable one. We encourage you to always share with us your birthday details so that you can be among our birthday shout-outs here on the Tobago Updates morning show. Just want to stick this one in. I'm not sure if that is why this young man ended up with the name Sparrow, but the mighty Sparrow also celebrates a birthday today.
Okay, good.
Word is that he's celebrating all of 91 years.
Wow.
So we want to send birthday greetings to the mighty Sparrow as well.
Well, you know, Alex, we need to let our viewers know what we have packed for them this morning.
We must.
So we're going to start things off with a conversation with no stranger to us here at Tobago Updates. That's attorney at law, Mr. Martin George. And we will be speaking all things about that courtroom recording that we would have seen circulating on social media. Next, we will be bringing on the Grand Chief of the First People's Sovereign Nation of Trinidad and Tobago. We're going to have a very packed and indigenous conversation. So viewers, that is what we have packed for you. Now, before we go, we have to tell them to do what, Alex? Share the live, share the live, share the live.
We will be right back.
Looking for office attire or worship apparel, then come to Tia's Classic Closet. Shopping for casual clothing or just want to dress down. Big discount, so it's you on clothing and comfortable shoes. Get some wonderful accessories to match your attire. Come to Tia's Classy Closet at 39 Montgomery Road. Opening hours daily from 9:30 to 5:30. For more information, call 710-168-999999.
My name is Carl Page. I'm the head coach of St. Jago High School boys track and field team.
My name is Joseph Small. I am the head coach of the girls female program. Preparing an athlete is not just running on the track. You have the mental aspect, you have the nutrition aspect, and you have the support and the motivation. So there's a lot of factors that we have to look into, and we have to try to see how best we can deal with them as best as possible.
Be viewing Caribbean Medical TV on this station.
Coming up, hot plates, cold drinks, and chill vibes were the order of the month in Antigua and Barbuda. Top chefs, tasty menus, influencers, and foodies. The boxes were ticked, kitchens buzzing, and grills fired up. It's the one and only Antigua and Barbuda Culinary Month with Caribbean Passport TV on this station.
Stay tuned for what's coming next.
Sofa Factory is here in Tobago. Conveniently located Montessori Drive, Glen Road, Scarborough. Up to 20% off on select sofas for customization. Deals on some sofas from as low as $4,000 until stocks last. 10% off on all wardrobes. Half off on shower heads with the purchase of a vanity set. Come in and experience the new way to shop for furniture and see the quality in person.
Put a smile on your face when you're moving from place to place. Good morning, good morning, morning, good morning, morning.
Viewers, welcome back. As promised, we're talking this morning with Attorney Martin George, and we're discussing that audio file that has been making its rounds on social media, recorded from a magistrate's court hearing. Mr. George joins us virtually this morning. Good morning, Mr. George, and welcome.
Yes, hi, good morning to you and good morning to all your viewers all over the world. I know your program is followed in many jurisdictions, in many diasporas, and, you are at the forefront of bringing the news and the views to the public.
Well, thank you very much for the affirmation. We want to start right away with the first question on this matter. Was this a legal thing to do?
That's very interesting in terms of that question. And what I want to do, I want to draw, the attention of everyone to the Chief Justice's practice directions. Now, the thing is, a lot of people are not aware of it, but there are practice directions which were issued. All right, so we have to go back and understand historically how these things came about. Coming out of the COVID period, all right, we started the practice of having electronic hearings. And as part of that, the then Chief Justice, Honorable Ivor Archie, issued practice directions. And these practice directions were issued on the 27th of March, 2020. And I will just give the public some, snippets of what is contained in these practice directions, because it is important for the public to understand that there are rules and regulations governing these scenarios. Okay? So in these practice directions, which were issued by the Chief Justice, right, he said, where a hearing is to take place by electronic means, every attorney at law or party shall be present upon premises that are private, professional, and conducive to good acoustics. Now, we have seen scenarios where people try to sit down in a vehicle while it's driving. In fact, we have seen scenarios where people are driving, while trying to do court, online. That is not permissible. All right. It says here that you have to have, a space that is private, professional, and conducive to good acoustics. Then it says, for hearing involving a video link, the camera must be positioned so that the attorney at law party is facing the court. Where evidence is being taken, the court must have a clear and unobstructed view, right, of the entire room. Where a laptop or desktop computer is not being used, the device must be stationary. So you can't be like walking through the streets while doing the video conferencing, of court. You have to be in a private space, a quiet place, and you have to be stationary. Then it goes on. Every attorney at law and party must be prepared for a hearing in advance and shall be seated and must be attired in a manner customary to that which is adopted when physically being present in court. All right. We have seen scenarios where some persons come in a t-shirt, or, I saw once a young man trying to appear in a vest, from his home, and he said, well, he just woke up. No, you have to dress as if you are dressing for physical court, as if you were present in court. All right. So while the, video conferencing facilitates the, ease of access and allows you to do it virtually without having necessarily to, get up and, go out to the courtroom and sit down and wait. You can do it from your home. It allows that facility, but you still have to treat it as if you are in court. And these are important things. And we'll get into the most important one in relation to this issue shortly. All right. So you must ensure that each person participating in the hearing, which involves the video link, looks directly into the camera where applicable and conducts themselves in a civil and respectful manner. Now, we will touch upon that in terms of the content of what we heard, right? Because it says you must speak in a civil and respectful manner, right? And from that recording, you heard the question of respect coming up repeatedly as an issue that was raised, all right? Then it goes on to say that if necessary, that you have to address the court, right? You say, my lord, my lady, or you say, your honor, so we have to always show that respect for the judge, the magistrate, the master, whoever is in charge of those proceedings. All right. So there are ways that you do it. And all of this is contained in the practice directions. All right. Then it goes on to say, right, a hearing by electronic means, right, this is item 9 in the practice direction, and I want everyone to listen to this one. A hearing by electronic means shall not be recorded by any attorney at law and or party to the proceedings or by any third party. So the Chief Justice made it clear when he issued these practice directions in March 2020. So that's more than 6 years ago. This has been the regulation governing these hearings, right? It says a hearing by electronic means shall not be recorded by any attorney at law and or party to the proceedings or by any third party. Proceedings held in camera must not be broadcast, recorded, or reported by any attorney at law or party in any manner. Attorneys at law and or parties may be required to give undertakings to the court in this regard. So the simple answer to all the speculation that has been going on is that it is not permissible to record these proceedings.
Quite interesting. As a follow-up to that, in a situation where the hearings are electronic and there seem to be these restrictions, are there allowances? We know when you attend physical court, a reporter can sit in the court, make notes and so on and record. How is that catered for, if at all, in electronic hearings?
All right, so there have been scenarios where, we have actually seen where, some judges, if they have to deliver an important decision, they may let certain members of the media know, and they may be able to be present, on the link. All right, so I guess they can take their notes, or sometimes some judges may actually sit in a physical court for the delivery of their judgment, and you could have reporters there in the physical court, even though the judge himself is broadcasting through a video link. So I've seen that happen also. All right, so there are ways that it can be done, or sometimes the judge may issue a copy of the judgment directly to the media because it might be a matter of such importance that, it's something that the public should be aware of. So there are ways that things like that can be done in terms of the reporting, but we have to be careful in terms of the practice direction, which says there ought to be no recording of it. So, what we saw, appears to have, not fallen in line with that guidance.
All right, and Mr. George, separate and apart from the leaked recording, it seemed to have exposed or let us start asking the questions about whether or not there are internal pressures within the police service, especially where police prosecutors are concerned. Now, I want you to walk us through what or who exactly is a police prosecutor and what are their roles and functions.
Okay, all right. So the thing is, traditionally, because of what has been described as the chronic shortage of staff at the office of the DPP, it has been allowed, and it has become a practice whereby you have policemen in the courts, particularly in the magistrates' courts, who have been allowed to prosecute matters. So they would have received some sort of limited training in the past, and they would have gained by way of experience, the ability to prosecute the matters, and then of course they would have had the fiat or the blessing of the DPP to authorize these police prosecutors to prosecute the matters on behalf of the state. Right? So you actually have a unit within the police service, which is called the Court and Process Unit, which is supposed to manage all of these police prosecutions. Now, what has happened is that you've had, a flood of police officers who have gone on to earn legal qualifications, and they've qualified themselves as attorneys, and as a result it appears that there's been a natural progression to draft these police officers who are also attorneys into this unit and have them prosecute matters. But the point is, if it is that you never had the training and the experience and learned about court craft, court etiquette, how to properly address a court, how to conduct yourself properly in court, then just the fact that you happen to also be an attorney at law, you happen to graduate as an attorney at law, and you're a police officer, it doesn't make you an excellent police prosecutor just by that fact alone. You have to have the training, the understanding, the learning, the ability to be able to navigate the courtroom in a manner which is professional and, is a benefit, and, it speaks to the quality of the profession. It's not just the fact that you have managed to get an LLB degree. I mean, if you look around, let's be realistic. In Trinidad and Tobago, we are churning out about 600 new attorneys every year. So having an LLB is nothing special. Being an attorney at law is no longer anything special, I'm sorry to say. People may find that shocking to say, but it's the reality because of the numbers that are coming out. And you now have to wonder, is it a question of the quality being diluted? In other words, if you want to stretch the juice, you keep putting water in it, so you have, a bigger and bigger jug of juice, but the quality keeps going down. And I think this is where the conversation really should be headed in Trinidad and Tobago in terms of attorneys coming out and the fact that many of them, and sometimes through no fault of their own, they do not get the opportunity for that training and learning experience where you hone your craft, you learn from the seniors, you get the opportunity to observe them in action, you get to learn court etiquette. These are not things you could learn in a textbook, These are not things you could learn in law school. These are not things that you could learn in an LLB degree. These are things you learn by practice, by diligent application of yourself, hard work, industry, and endeavor. I recall when I first came out, I was very fortunate because I was able to, sit and learn from the likes of the great Carl Hudson Phillips, Frank Solomon. I have seen these guys in action, Bruce Prokop. These were the persons who were there in the courtroom, and we had the opportunity to actually sit and listen to them, and you looked at them, Russell Martineau, Ralston Nelson, you'd see these guys in action and you'd be in awe. But the point is, it was also a learning experience. And I think that, it's something that the profession really has to consider in a serious way, because most of the new attorneys coming out, and I say this without hesitation because it is a fact, the majority of new attorneys coming out do not have that opportunity and will never have that opportunity. And as a result, you will see a continuation of the dilution of the quality that is being produced, and it's going to just end up being a generalized rat race.
And Mr. George, on the backdrop of everything you just said, in your professional opinion, do you think that Trinidad and Tobago should continue to allow police officers to prosecute on behalf of the state?
I have said repeatedly, and I mean no disrespect to the police officers who do so, that there is no need to continue this practice. When there was a shortage of attorneys, then of course, yes, you would say, well, look, to fill the gap, yes, you have the police prosecutors. But now there's an excess of attorneys floating around, right? You have attorneys who, can't get jobs. You have attorneys who are applying to work as clerks, because they can't get jobs. So the reality is you have persons out there. It's a question of taking them in, giving them the training, because that training is the most important component. Right? It's not just having an LLB or LEC or LPC, or SQE. It's the question of having that training, that guidance from a senior, and of course, having the right mindset, because that's another problem. We could spend a whole session on the mindset of the young attorneys coming out. Most of them do not want to work. It's a reality. It's a reality. The majority of them don't want to work. They want the success. They want the trappings of success. They want to, be swinging their Gucci handbag or their Louis Vuitton, handbag, clicking their heels and, pressing their remote, boop, boop, for their BMWs or Mercedes Benz. But they want that without the hard work. The effort that the more mature and senior attorneys would have put in, they don't want that. They don't want the hard work. They don't want the late nights and the being up, preparing a brief in detail. No. They want to go on chat GPT and say, look, you prepare this opinion for me, and then they end up going in court citing cases that are non-existent because you had AI manufacture a case just to fill the gap, because it has happened. In fact, we've had scenarios here where judges have had to reprimand local attorneys in Trinidad and Tobago for the use of the AI, whereby they have, presented cases which are fictitious, but that's the reality of many of the younger attorneys. They don't want to do the work, and they all feel that they are smarter and more brilliant than you and I, because they feel that they can find a shortcut to success. So they feel that they will get all the trappings of success without putting in the effort and the hard work. And it's not just our profession. I can tell you, I have friends who are doctors, I have friends who are accountants, and they tell me it's the same thing. I have friends who are engineers. So it's really, I think it's a generational issue whereby the younger ones are convinced that, we, the old folks, that, we do it old school, we do it by hard work, effort, sacrifice, intense labor and, diligence. And they are convinced that, we are stupid for having done it that way because they are young and bright and they will find a magic formula to become a millionaire or billionaire overnight without the hard work. So all we can do is wish them well.
Mr. George, we take a break right now. Stay with us, you and the viewers. When we come back, we continue the conversation on the issues surrounding the leaked courtroom audio file.
Make your goals a reality this season with Mount Pleasant Credit Union. Tobago's choice, we got you smiling. Come and feel that mid-year feeling, oh yeah. Mid-year island dreams, we make it easy. $20,000 to $100,000. Come and see, we warm hearts, bright plans, your goals grow. Mount Pleasant Credit Union, Tobago's choice. Every loan wants to prove more reasons to celebrate. Chance to win big, doesn't that feel great? Up to $3,500 in exciting gift certificates. Share investment starts as low as $2,500. Mid-year island dreams, we make it easy. $20,000 to $100,000. Come and see, we warm hearts, bright plans. Let your goals grow. Mount Pleasant Credit Union, Tobago's choice, Bobby! From the reef to the road.
From the reef to the road.
From the reef to the road. Tobago calling. Sweet vibes, sweet wine, everybody falling. We bring the culture straight to you. Tobago updates, we keeping it true.
Oh gosh, Tobago updates. On the screen, there we go. You're home for October, carnival show. From the big stage shine to the valley road line. We bring Tobago to the world in real time.
Tobago updates. Tobago updates. Carnival 2026. We said the pace. Wave your flag. Anywhere you're there. Island love streaming all around you. Clicking love, come for the rhythm start.
Tobago updates, Caribbean art.
My name is Carpage. I'm the head coach of St. Jago High School boys track and field team.
My name is Joseph Small. I am the head coach of the girls female program. Preparing an athlete is not just running on the track. You have the mental aspect, you have the nutrition aspect, and you have the support and the motivation. So there's a lot of factors that we have to look into, and we have to try to see how best we can deal with them as best as possible.
Be viewing Caribbean Medical TV on this station.
Put a smile on your face when you're moving from place to place. Good morning, good morning, morning, good morning, morning.
Welcome back, viewers. We continue a conversation with attorney at law, Mr. Martin George, and we're continuing to discuss issues surrounding a leaked recording from the Magistrates Court. Mr. George, you still with us?
Yes, I am. I'm here.
All right. We saw, or at least we heard you say that in a number of cases, young attorneys lack the preparation, and that has to do with the experience of working their way through the court. And I think those of us who got the opportunity to hear this recording saw some of it come out. The officer seemed to have had challenges, not of his own making, but not able quite well to demonstrate the finesse that may have been helpful to him in terms of navigating his own position alongside, as it were, if that were possible at all, the position of the magistrate with how that matter was going to proceed from the point where there was some bit of a difference of opinion. But I am concerned as well about the fact that the circumstances in the police service, and this probably links back to Luke's question whether police officers should continue to prosecute on behalf of the state. The circumstances in the police service at the time saw him only receive a file excuse me, the day before the matter went to court, which I'm not sure gives him sufficient time to prepare himself. And then we also saw there was some procedural missteps. I'd want to very carefully say, you know, what is apparent. But how does one navigate differences of opinion between the court and in this case the prosecutor, especially when there seems to be so many challenges with the police service and its resources to properly prosecute matters?
Well, the thing is, I'm not sure that it really was a difference of opinion. And I mean, I just want to put on the record that this magistrate is one who is always very balanced and fair. In fact, very fair to the prosecution, because you would realize that the defense attorney sought an adjournment and she refused. So therefore, that was something in favor of the prosecution, you know. But equally, she said, well, okay, if I have refused them and, you know, have compelled the defense to proceed, then you, the prosecution, you have to also be prepared to proceed. And I mean, she was eminently right in the circumstances, because when one looks at it, you know, if it is that you as the prosecutor, if your reasoning now is, you know, ex post facto, is that you only got the file the day before and you were not ready and were not prepared, then you had a duty to be candid and frank and upfront with the court on that issue from the get-go. So don't try to give the impression, if it is that that impression was given, don't do, you know, to make it appear that you were ready to proceed if it is that you knew that you were not. And, you know, I think the magistrate also looked at the matter historically, you know, in terms of the lack of readiness, you know. I think she even gave a figure, statistic, you know, and said 90% of the time, you know, there was that unreadiness. So therefore, you had a scenario where, based upon what was before her, you know, and based upon the fact that the prosecution appeared to have not applied ab initio for an adjournment, you know, and if she's compelling the defense to proceed, then equally, you know, to balance the scales, she would also have to call upon the prosecution to proceed. And that's why she did so. So, you know, it's something that you as a prosecutor, you ought to have managed from the start by, you know, laying your cards on the table. You know, I mean, of course, the magistrate could still have insisted, well, look, based upon the number of adjournments, based upon, you know, the history of the matter, I'm still compelling you to proceed. But at least you've put that out there from the start. And then, of course, if it reaches a point where you have no more witnesses, and if it's through no fault of your own, then you have to do the honorable thing, and you just simply indicate to the court, well, my lady, this is as far as I can go at this time. As I indicated from the start, you know, I only got this file, you know, yesterday. So as a result, you know, through no fault of mine, I am not in a position to assist the court any further. That's how you handle it. And it's as simple as that, you know. And had it been put across like that, the magistrate may then have said, well, look, okay, you know, upon consideration of things, you know, and the way you've put it across now, you know, maybe it's really something that is beyond your control, and maybe I might consider granting the adjournment. Instead, the way it was put across in, you know, this very contentious and, you know, a manner that seemed to be as if, well, you're at war with the court and you're at war with the no, that's not how you conduct yourself at all. Even if you're a defense attorney, you know, I mean, you could disagree with a court's ruling. You can disagree with a judge's ruling, but there's a way you do so. There's a manner in which you conduct yourself. You know, you can say, well, my lady, I am fully respectful of, you know, what the court said. However, could I ask the court to consider looking at this alternative or looking at it from this other perspective? That's the way you do it. You don't come across in this manner as if, well, you know, you are showing contempt and disrespect for a court. That's not acceptable in any forum at all. And, you know, I mean, I hope that this reaches to the highest levels of the police service, in that the commissioner himself ought to, in fact, he should have come out already and made a statement about it, because this is one of his officers. And you can't have officers showing what may appear to be this kind of gross and blatant disrespect for the court, regardless of what difficult circumstances you may have found yourself in. You cannot be allowed to carry on like this. I mean, if this is how a police officer and an attorney at law and a prosecutor is behaving and speaking to a court, what do you leave for, you know, a lay person who is a defendant who might have been locked up, you know, for years, we are awaiting trial, and, you know, frustration is building. You know what? They're going to start, you know, saying what they want in court. If you understand me, it's going to be a free-for-all. So, you know, this ought to be definitely investigated. And if it is that there is a finding that disciplinary measures are warranted, then the commissioner needs to ensure that the disciplinary measures are taken and instituted, both through the police service's own internal mechanisms and possibly also through the Professional Standards Bureau, because this does not reflect well. I mean, you know, it really is a smear, you know, which besmirches the face of the police service in the eyes of the public, adding to all the other things that are currently going on.
And Mr. George, circling back to the leak recording, and I think that life is all about learning lessons. If you were to send a message to the judiciary, the police service, and even members of the public, what is one lesson or lessons you think should be taken away from this situation?
Well, I think that, okay, one thing I will say is that there are some judges, some magistrates, some masters who, when they send out the links, or when their teams send out the links for the virtual court, for the video hearings, they also set out in detail that list that I just read out from you of the Chief Justice's practice directions. There are some who don't. I think it should actually be mandatory that all court links which are sent out to every and anyone, anywhere, that it contains that list. So in other words, nobody can say, I did not know, or I was not told, or I was not notified. You know, because if it is that someone didn't know that they couldn't record it, then you really can't blame them or hold them responsible for doing so. So I think that it's really something that ought to be implemented, you know, across the board. So whether it's magistrates, court, masters court, you know, high court, court of appeal, wherever, that direction, that practice direction of March 2020 ought to be set out in extenso along with the link.
Mr. George, we would really love to continue this conversation, but we've run out of time. I'm hopeful that we can make some arrangement to continue the conversation at a later date. But we want to thank you so much. We want to thank you so much for coming and sharing with the public your thoughts and certainly some facts about this circumstance. Thank you, and do enjoy the rest of your day.
It's indeed a pleasure. Have a wonderful day. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Well, viewers, we want to thank you for staying with us for that conversation. We're not done yet. We have other conversations coming up. We go to a break now. When we come back, we talk to the Chief of the First Peoples of Arima. Stay with us, and during the break, remember to share the live, share the live, share the live.
Looking for office attire or worship apparel, then come to Tia's Classic Closet. Shopping for casual clothing or just want to dress down. Big discount. discount. So it's you on clothing and comfortable shoes. Get some wonderful accessories to match your attire. Come to Tia's Classy Closet at 39 Montgomery Road. Opening hours daily from 9:30 to 5:30. For more information, call 710-168-99999.
Sofa Factory is here in Tobago. Conveniently located Montessori Drive, Glen Road, Scarborough. Up to 20% off on select sofas for customization. Deals on some sofas from as low as $4,000 until stocks last. 10% off on all wardrobes. Half off on shower heads with the purchase of a vanity set. Come in and experience the new way to shop for furniture and see the quality in person.
Make your goals a reality this season with Mount Pleasant Credit Union. Tobago's choice, we got you smiling. Come and feel that mid-year feeling, oh yeah. Mid-year island dreams, we make it easy. $20,000 to $100,000. Come and see, we warm hearts, bright plans, your goals grow. Mount Pleasant Credit Union, Tobago's choice. You know, every loan wants to prove more reasons to celebrate. Chance to win big, doesn't that feel great? Up to $3,500 in exciting gift certificates. Share investment starts as low as $2,500. Mid-year island dreams, we make it easy. $20,000 to $100,000. Come and see, we warm hearts, bright plans. Let your goals grow. Mount Pleasant Credit Union, Tobago's choice, you know. From the reef to the road.
From the reef to the road.
From the reef to the road. Tobago calling. Sweet vibes, sweet wine, everybody falling. We bring the culture straight to you. Tobago updates, we keeping it true.
Oh gosh, Tobago updates on the screen. Here we go. You're home for October, can't even show. From the big station to the back road line, we bring Tobago to the world in real time.
Tobago updates, Tobago updates. Carnival 2026, we said the pace. Wave your flag, anywhere you're there. Island love streaming all around you. Big king love, come for the rhythm start.
Tobago updates, Caribbean art.
Nice.
If I have to call a supervisor one more time to sign off on a customer because their financials are in a mess, I will scream.
Hey, don't scream in a bank. That have lockup in it.
It's either they're not registered properly, or you know what? We could just forget about annual returns, right?
Compliance is a bad word to most of them. Haul your compliance out of here. But let me eat.
What is wrong with Trinbagonians? I mean, it has so much help they could get out there.
Well, you know, Trinis, we don't like to spend we money.
But you know what? Be comfortable with losing we money. That make it any financial
What people should do is call Anderson in Trinidad and Tobago.
Wait, what? Anderson in Trinidad and Tobago?
Anderson in Trinidad and Tobago Tax and Accounting Services. Yeah, they offer help from registering your business to filing your tax. My lunch is over.
Wait, tell me more.
No, go and scream in the bank. You go and scream in the bank.
No, Antoine, don't get one sooner.
My name is Carpage. I'm the head coach of St. Jago High School boys track and field team.
My name is Joseph Small. I am the head coach of the girls female program. Preparing an athlete is not just running on the track. You have the mental aspect, you have the nutrition aspect, and you have the support and the motivation. So there's a lot of factors that we have to look into, and we have to try to see how best we can deal with them as best as possible.
Be viewing Caribbean Medical TV on this station.
Coming up, hot plates, cold drinks, and chill vibes were the order of the month in Antigua and Barbuda. Top chefs, tasty menus, influencers, and foodies. The boxes were ticked, kitchens buzzing, and grills fired up. It's the one and only Antigua and Barbuda Culinary Month with Caribbean Passport TV on this station.
Stay tuned for what's coming next.
The Caribbean is more than just a place. It's a spirit, resilient, vibrant, and full of possibility. Rooted in connection, driven by community. It's who we are and the heart of everything we do. For over 150 years, we've been right here, invested in the Caribbean, its people, and its progress. And today, we're going even further. Liberty Business, rooted in the Caribbean, committed to you.
Put a smile on your face when you're moving from place to place. Good morning, good morning, morning, good morning, morning.
Viewers, thank you for staying with us as promised before the break. In fact, as promised since our rundown, we're talking the gathering of indigenous peoples. To talk about that with us this morning is Kasike Aramu Raratuma, Grand Chief of the First People's Sovereign Nation of Trinidad and Tobago, Mr. Eric Lewis. Is joining us virtually. Good morning, Mr. Lewis, and welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Ya Kurubiara, Jakera, Mabrika, and the Tigwai Apushi. I would have greeted you all in the some of the Amerindian languages, and one is Kalinago, the other is Warao, and Satusa Kosakabong, and that is in the Arawakan. So good morning again. I'm Eric Lewis, Grand Chief of the First People's Sovereign Nations in Trinidad and Tobago, Kasike Iramu Waratuma.
Mr. Lewis, I had some questions lined up to me, but when I saw, I said, for a Grand Chief, you seem pretty young. How does one become a Grand Chief at such a young age?
Well, it depends on your council, it depends on your people, your capability. And this here, and this image here, this is our old Grand Chief. Now, he was very, very old when he died. He died at 103 while serving as Grand Chief. And I was his immediate next. Now, the council took the decision to appoint me and to name me as their chief, and that I would follow the work of our former Grand Chief, Paul Navarro.
The First People's Nation of Trinidad and Tobago seem from time to time to be forgotten, and I don't want to come across as abrasive saying it that way, but there are times when we hear very little, and then there are times when we hear so much. There seems to be waves of existence, but whenever we hear from you, there seems to be so much happening on a consistent basis that we hear so little about. Tell us about this upcoming gathering and whether this gathering is a step towards changing that.
Well, apart from that, we would only be put on air if the media covers us, because I can definitely tell you that our group, the First People's Sovereign Nations, we have engagements and activities monthly and perhaps twice a month in different areas, in different parts of Trinidad. And also sometimes we are coming to Tobago, but we'll be soon in Tobago as well. So this gathering is basically to make some clarifications, such as our involvement nationally and internationally, which we have been doing. To also highlight the issues affecting First Peoples in Trinidad and Tobago. We want to look at the different areas in Trinidad. So we have our leaders, both in Trinidad and in Tobago. We have one person in Tobago who is our representative there. and in every other part of the country, we have divided the country, from north to south, for our leaders. So we have set up our own boundaries and our own regulations. So that is what we would want to re-establish today, and also to take a stance against I don't want to use the ills against Indigenous people, the lack of recognition, the lack of respect, and I've been reading many of the Facebook comments over the past few days, which I took time to do, and I saw it was under one video, we had over 1,000 comments. I couldn't read every single one, but I did try to engage, and my counsel also engaged. And it was alarming, it was appalling, the type of comments that we read. And as you said, some of them came across as racist statement. I'm of mixed descent. You wouldn't find some of the indigenous in Venezuela on the riverbank are not even 100% anymore, because they are now mixed bred. They are now mixed with some of the European ancestry, etc. That does not say that one cannot identify with their indigenous heritage in no part of the world. So today I would also like to read some of the acts of the World Indigenous Acts, also under the United Nations, stuff like that, and also make comparison to the Maori. The Maori people of Aotearoa, which is New Zealand, they may look blonde hair and blue eyes today, but they identify with their indigenous heritage. So who are we as a Caribbean people not to identify with a heritage that says who we are? I'm not saying that, indigenous people are Africans or they are Caucasians, in their own right they are, in their land, in their space. But we are descendants of the indigenous to this land. This old chief here was my great cousin. He was the cousin of my grandfather. The nephew of my grandfather and the cousin of my mother. So I have an old family lineage. My mother was born, my grandfather was born in 1898, and this chief here was born in 1919. So my heritage goes way back, even in my own ancestry, even in my own existence today.
All right, and Chief, globally we understand and appreciate that when it comes to appreciating, indigenous rights and cultures, the modern world doesn't really seem to be pro-indigenous peoples, but you all have done a very good job in still preserving your heritage and your ancestral history. For someone who is not an indigenous person, how can they assist you all, in that fight and that campaign to preserving who you are as an indigenous people?
Well, that's one of the things that I have opened the doors to. We have opened the doors to working. As a young chief, I've opened the doors to working with all cultures, creeds, races, even people of different religious beliefs and background. And what they can do is basically get in touch with us, get in contact with us, and let us know what they're willing to assist in doing, if it's in media, if it's in perhaps planning the event, preparing for the event, or, it have many different ways that persons can assist. We fund our own projects. We do not depend on government funding to do what we have to do. The government knows that we exist. The ministry knows that we exist. The Parliamentary Committee on Human Rights know that we exist. But at the same time, when it comes to support, it seems to be very limited and very minute, if any at all. For example, today's event, today's conference, and it's a half-day conference. We are having a press conference with it as well. But that is not sponsored by anybody. We sponsor it ourselves. The statues and monuments that we would have erected, we sponsored it ourselves. We have the Moruga Museum, the National Cocoa and Chocolate Museum, our heritage complex there in Moruga. We sponsor all those things ourselves. And my group has been working tediously throughout the country to bring recognition to that. So far, we have erected about 4 First Peoples monuments over the past 3 years. And we have a statue for you, Tobago. 2 statues are here for you. In Trinidad, we have 2 statues ready for you guys in Tobago. And you all have a great heritage right there in Tobago, of First Peoples heritage, where Amerindian artifacts are being excavated in different areas of Tobago. My good friend Gabriel de Gaetano is working with, in trying to preserve that. And it's quite interesting that it's not his own heritage, but it becomes his love of heritage because of his love for history. So that's one way that, a person who does not carry indigenous blood, but feels the urge to preserve a heritage and a culture, that touches them.
Chief, we have looked at least those of us who may have been born long enough, we've looked at how the First Peoples generally have been presented. I remember having to do some of this reading from as far back as primary school. Are you satisfied that the representation that we've had, even through our education system, is one, accurate, and two, sufficient?
No, it's inaccurate and it's not sufficient. So what we have been doing is that we have been doing a more in-depth research. When you hear about chiefs and Chief Hyarima, it brings to the assumption that the only chief that Trinidad would have had was Chief Hyarima, or the most prominent chief or the most important chief was Chief Hyarima. That is not so. And the next misconception that we get is that the only indigenous group that exists is in Arima or Santa Rosa. That was one of the amalgamations of the indigenous people, that they were rounded up like cattle in a herd and dropped off there. And then they were told, stay right there. However, as a young Grand Chief, I did a lot more research. I studied archaeology, I did some archaeological research, I do a lot of historical research. I've been able to get some information from the archives of Sevilla, Spain. And with that information has brought a new insight to the indigenous community. We have come across over 15 chiefs for different parts of Trinidad. 15 war chiefs, 15 warrior chiefs who would have fought for the indigenous people. We have Chief Bukamari, who was the country's first recorded Grand Chief, imagine, in the 1520s, right? We have Chief Piakoma, which is the same one that Piako is named after, and Chief Kumakarapo, Chief Utayani, Chief Amanete, Chief Guina, and names like that, and it goes on. And these are the first warrior chiefs of Trinidad. And how could we forget them? The country's first heroes. And how dare any other culture challenge the indigenous peoples on their own land? How dare any other culture say to, erase and to eradicate? Because then we'd be heading into part 2 of colonialization, which we will not allow. We will not allow it, and we'll do our very best, diplomatically and otherwise, to ensure that our heritage and culture continues for the next generation. The young people, we have a youth department and a youth space where young people are also involved in ensuring that our indigenous community continues. They are involved with us, they are learning, they are training, and every chief and chiefess of the First Peoples Sovereign Nation has an understudy to ensure that it continues, to ensure that the culture and the heritage continues. So no more are we just sat in one space or in a corner. And I'm not for that. So we're on social media, on Facebook, on Instagram, also on YouTube. And YouTubers also visit us. So we're more open to meeting the people, because I believe if we stay in the bush and we speak to the bushes, we will not be able to attain the valuable contribution, attain the contributions that we need to make. We won't be able to attain the respect or the recognition that the indigenous community deserves. And when I sit as Grand Chief, it's not me. I'm representing our ancestors past, I'm representing those who are present, and I'm also representing the future, because that's what a chief does. So the chief basically is a leader, yes, but he is the cacique, which has a greater meaning to indigenous people, because that means he's the doctor, he's the judge, he's the lawyer, and he's the one to make the wise decision with the council and to ensure that things continue to exist.
And, Chief, internationally, we have observed that the conversation of how indigenous groups interact with, their respective member states has always been one at the forefront. For example, we've seen it with the Saramaka people and Suriname, where international bodies would have dictated, that when states are interacting with you all, they have to fulfill certain obligations. At the level of Trinidad and Tobago, what are some strategies you think that the country should implement that are adequate enough so that when you all have to, intimate certain knowledge to the state, it is one effective and it's actually one that really seeks your benefits?
Well, some persons in our group suggested that there's a representation made for indigenous people at the parliament, right? So that's one. The other one is that we should be invited, as the other groups are invited, to the opening of parliament, for example. That's one, which is a symbolic gesture. Opening of official events and functions at the, with the president, with the prime minister, so that it shows the interest of the indigenous people towards the affairs of the country. And another thing is that we need to have more meetings with our line ministries, which would be Ministry of Community Development and Culture, and Ministry of Peoples, Ministry of the Peoples and Social Development, and also Ministry of Tourism. But at the same time, I am not seeing those things happening as they should. On the other hand, however, we are invited to diplomatic functions with the different ambassadors, with the United Nations, and I myself and our group have kept a very close relationship with the United Nations in administering different services for people, both locally and internationally, especially and regionally, regarding migrants, etc. The indigenous migrants, that is. So for the Warao people, we pay a particular attention to them because they are recognized as indigenous people of Trinidad as well. So that's some of the ways that we have been working, and also with the Living Water community, the Catholic Relief Services, have also been instrumental in ensuring that we continue working with the migrant ministry as well, ensuring that they get their registration, food and clothes, and even shelter. So those are some of the ways that we have been working and doing our part internationally and regionally, and even here locally, ensuring that the heritage and culture is not just stifled in a box, but at the same time, people are trying to stifle us again and to round us up in a corner. But we're fighting against those. And I really believe that the fight should not be against each other. The fight should not be against different racial backgrounds or different heritage. And I'm saying this in reference to many of the Facebook comments that I've been reading. And the fight for us is fighting to exist in a time when, yes, we may be considered the minority. However, I am certain that we would have over 300,000 Trinidadians who can identify an ancestor who was indigenous, who was either, as they may say, Carib or Arawak or Warao, or they may even tell you that their families are from Venezuela. Many, many Trinidadian and Tobagonians can trace their roots, again, to some indigenous descent. As well as in Tobago, we have people in Tobago who also have indigenous ancestry. And one of the great ways to solve that is also through research and through DNA ancestry testing, which I myself has done.
All right, Chief, we want to thank you for joining us. That's unfortunately all the time we have this one. Before we go, could you just remind us of time and place for today's event?
So today's event is starting in the next hour at the University of the West Indies, Faculty of Food and Agriculture, Faculty of Food and Agriculture, Room B, today at UE. Right. So, Jakera, Dihana, Nabakanai, with blessing, goodness, and peace, I leave all of you at this time, and I wish all the best for our beautiful twin nation of Trinidad, twin island of Trinidad and Tobago. Jakera.
Thank you very much, Grand Chief, and we wish you all the best with today's events and the future of the First Peoples. And viewers, that's where we take a wrap this morning. It's been a pretty tight morning, look.
Very tight morning, but the conversations, they were really thought-provoking.
Indeed. So viewers, we want to say thank you, and we encourage you to stay with us. GMT is up next, and remember to share the live,
share the live, share the live.
We realize at TEMA that people need to understand financial planning and how to build their homes. After disaster, a lot of people come to us, and the reason why they come to us is because they didn't build properly for the hazards around them. We had topics such as financial planning, land use, building codes,
we had the insurance agents talk about the type of insurance that you really need. And we really thank them for having an excellent presentation today and giving everybody what they need. A lot of questions were asked and they were answered excellently. People who weren't here missed out.
So pretty much what we set out to do, and I think we did so successfully, was to give persons the tools to equip them with readiness for the upcoming hurricane season. That's both financially and the hard facts in terms of what you need to know about your home, what can be done beforehand to secure it, and what can be done after a disaster hits. I think a lot of the messages hit home in terms of it was personal, real life scenario situation, especially Mr. Stewart gave a lot of real life situations in terms of where disasters happen when persons didn't expect it. It doesn't have to be a hurricane or a storm, it could be prolonged rainfall, and that could bring a disaster in certain areas. I think persons would have left with tips and possibly things that they need to do to be ready or to get in a more ready position. And as we said, preparation is your best line of defense, and we want persons to be prepared.
So people need to take disaster resilience and management personally. It is not about the government. Disaster resilience and management is a personal thing. You have to know how to protect you and your family. Your family is the most important thing to your life. I know it's the most important thing to me, and therefore you have to make plans. That's like the insurance agents. Just make plans for your future. Therefore, it's not me insurance. It could be insurance. It could be a plan. It could be having a communication plan, where to go, who to call, because people don't even know that. So just have basic conversations about disaster management to your kids and to your family.
That was a production of the Department of Information, Office of the Chief Secretary, Tobago House of Assembly.
What we did is post-harvest handling and safety in fresh produce. The reason for this is because at times, farmers do all the good agricultural practices in the field, and then when they reach or harvest the produce, there you see spoilage. So what we did, we geared our workshop to allow farmers to know the post-harvesting practices which will prevent spoilage or damage to their goods.
We dealt with storage, type of storage you need, temperature management, how to control incompatibility with the commodities that could spoil one another, how to avoid taking to the market stuff that is not good, and remind them of their harvesting practices, what they should do, the time of the day they should harvest, the containers they must use. The session was really about letting farmers know that they themselves are responsible for the safety and for the quality of the produce that they would put on the offer for sale, whether for retail or whether they are selling it themselves.
Farmers, of course, they were the main focus, students, and then we have persons who are potential farmers. So sometimes going into something, you want them to have a jump start, to have the best way in.
I learned a lot of things that I really didn't know about tomatoes, having vibration injuries, and how to properly harvest tomatoes and other crops, and how to see different defective crops and etc. So it was very informative. I enjoyed it a lot.
I learned a couple new things especially in handling the produce and especially storage also, because most of my losses is like when I leave the garden, I get less than I actually produce in the garden. So the handling of the produce actually will help me.
Being very mindful what you're putting into the production stage, and be mindful how you harvest, you transport it, or you store it, or you keep it cool, and what you put it next to when you're transporting it.
That was a production of the Department of Information, Office of the Chief Secretary, Tobago House of Assembly. You're viewing Tobago Update.
Updates Television, your exclusive gateway to Tobago, broadcasting the beauty of this island paradise to the world.
It's a brand new morning, rise up to a brand new dawning. As the passion start to rise, the energy fill the skies. I say thanks a favor to wake up and hear me neighbor. 60,000 people strong, and the vibes is never wrong. We are beauty, we are power, we are people in the sun. We are beaches, we are rivers, we are melanated ones. We special and there is no denying. Tobago is number one. I am you and you are me. Together we stronger. Good morning, Tobago. Good morning, Tobago. Good morning, Tobago.
Good morning, and welcome back to Good Morning Tobago right here on Tobago Updates, ladies and gentlemen. You know, whenever you see me sitting here, it's because we're about to have those conversations that you want to have while I ask those questions that you want asked. But before we get into this morning's interesting topics and conversations, let's have our news in 90 seconds. A police officer has been taken into custody following a volatile police-involved shooting in Bloody Bay yesterday. The victim, identified as Osei Murray, sustained a gunshot wound to the stomach during the encounter. Murray remains hospitalized in stable condition. Senior division investigators confirmed that while the officer is currently detained, the exact circumstances surrounding the shooting remains unclear at this hour. Additionally, a post-mortem examination has revealed that 12-year-old Mercedes Lane died from severe blunt trauma injuries to her body. Her grandfather had reportedly placed her in a vehicle at his Rancho Quimardo home on Saturday for transportation to her Los Iros residence, but she had never arrived. Following a missing persons report and search, an oil worker recovered her partly nude body face down near a well on Sunday morning. Crime scene teams are treating the fresh autopsy findings as a critical component of their ongoing homicide investigation. And finally, 2 women have been handed prison terms in the Scarborough Magistrate Court. Nicole Jordan and Marissa Finley were sentenced to 18 and 7 months simple imprisonment respectively, following a Tobago Divisional Task Force drug bust. The joint operation yielded over 474 grams of cocaine, carrying an estimated street value of $220. Senior Magistrate Alicia Chakran strongly commended the state's main witness, P.C. De Freitas, for their evidentiary presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, that was our news in 90 seconds. This morning we're jumping straight ahead, and we have the privilege of chatting virtually this morning with no other than Mr. McLean, who we know here very, very well on Tobago Updates. Mr. Reginald McLean is actually the president of the Tobago Hotel and Tourism Association. We're often having these conversations every year, and this year again we're talking about what is being expected from the tourism industry in the upcoming budget presentation for Tobago. Good morning, Mr. McLean, and welcome.
Good morning viewers in Tobago. Good
morning to the viewers in Trinidad and Tobago and the wider world.
Excellent. As I said this morning, we're often having this conversation every year around this time. What is the tourism industry expecting? Are we expecting to see anything different from what we have seen in the last year? Or has the blueprint presented by this THA kind of already lay out what we can expect to see?
You know, it's a funny thing because at the end of the day, there are many things that we expect and there's many things that we don't receive. And for us to take the diversification of the economy into tourism, many of what we've asked for, we must get. And we know that we are not getting it. And that's the reality. The 10% hotel accommodation tax, we've asked for that repeatedly to be put into the marketing of the island destination of Tobago. We've heard nothing on that. We've gone to every corner that we need to go to. That needs to be assigned to marketing of the destination. Otherwise, we are dead in the water. We need more funding for that. And that is one area that we could get it from. The other thing is the citizenry of Tobago are suffering from water. You know, we asked about 3 weeks ago in a meeting that Tobago be declared a water emergency, and that has not been done. We've asked for more water trucks to be brought up from Trinidad to help the situation in Tobago. So if we are to diversify into tourism, we have to fix what we need to fix first. And without water, it's no way we can do that. So this, I'm hoping something in the budget is going to come up for water because it is a terrible situation on the island. You know, everybody keeps saying, oh, the rains are coming, the rains are coming. You know how many rain clouds miss Tobago? Right now, none of the streams that feed from the rainforest have water in them. So it just goes to show how dry Tobago is. Other than that, we have a lovely airport terminal that has not been opened. I know part of the upcoming mid-year budget that the THA has asked for is some additional funding to get that open. So, you know, we have a few wish lists. We have plenty more than that, but without water in the island, we are stuck in the
Understood. And, you know, we've heard a lot about increasing the room stock on the island and improving the room stock. Do you think we can possibly see the actual implementation of a number of these policies that we've heard during the campaign season as it pertains to creating this artisan team that would assist existing properties with upgrading the quality of their rooms on the island?
Again, that is a central government issue and also a Tobago House of Assembly issue. We have asked for a loan fund to be set up for $150 million. We've asked for other things. And you heard what I said, a loan fund, not a grant. The properties since COVID, well, before COVID, Tobago's tourism was down. And since COVID, Tobago's tourism is in a lot worse position because we were actually the last islands to open in the world, basically. The room stock needs intervention, and the only way that intervention is going to come from loans via the government. Same way you've bailed out PICO and other entities. That is something that we expect. So if your diversification thrust is tourism, put your money where your mouth is and let us get something going to get tourism back in order. We need the room stock back up. We need the facilities on all the beaches, all the toilet facilities and all that back in operation. We need to get Tobago going, and the only way we're going to get Tobago going is money has to be invested back into Tobago, you know, so the people of Tobago can enjoy Tobago and the tourists who are coming in can enjoy Tobago. At the end of the day, we need foreign exchange in the country. One of the simplest ways to get foreign exchange is through tourism. And let us try and, we are willing to work with the government whether it's central government or Tobago House of Assembly, to make this a reality. And we've been pushing hard for it.
Understood. We have had a number of situations where persons even within the tourism industry are saying, although we want to boost the tourism product, whether it be through service offering, we just do not have the capital. And you spoke about the government providing those funds. Has the association spoken to its members about utilizing some of the things that the THA have spoken about, like this loan guarantee program and other initiatives to help boost the industry?
Even with the loan guarantee program, there are certain restrictions in it. Again, it comes back down to the individual properties having the proper paperwork in line to get those loan guarantees. But it goes deeper than that. Even a lot of properties that have the paperwork in line, the banks are not willing to do loans. And this is why we've asked the THA for this fund, which would be a loan program to assist with what's going on. We've also spoken about a restaurant fund as well, fund or grant, where a lot of restaurants in Tobago have been closed since COVID. And we need to get these back in operation as well, because you can't just have the room stock coming back. You have to have the other ancillary services coming in as well, including things like the glass bottom boat operators, the mom and pop accommodation, the guest houses. All of these are things that need to come back. And at the end of the day, when the banks are not willing to finance because of the situation that we have with tourism on this island, it becomes very difficult. So even a loan guarantee program is a difficult thing. So it has to, the government has to look deeper inward and say, okay, we're gonna create this fund. The interest rate is going to be X. The moratorium is going to be Y. The payback is going to be 15 to 20 years, and then leave that money in the fund as it's paid back to be constantly reinvested into tourism. You know, realistically, Tobago needs $1 billion put back into the industry to get the industry going again. And the only way we're going to get all the international flights we need is we need to get the critical room stock back in order.
Understood. And as it pertains to improving tourism on the island overall, do you think that there are some very small areas that can make a key difference that persons often overlook?
Well, I started with water. That is the key thing that keeps being overlooked, and it is, you can't run an industry, far less an island with the people on it, without water. But there are a lot of low-hanging fruits. You know, people talk about, why are we going to build a new hotel in Tobago when we have so many other hotels that are there? But the bottom line is, the major airlines to come into Tobago require a certain amount of room stock, and they want to look at that room stock from decent hotels. And the only way to become a decent hotel again in this island is we have to reinvest money into it. So the bottom line for tourism for Tobago is money has to be reinvested into the current room stock. And again, we welcome any new properties that are coming online as well, because those would not need what the current hotel, resorts, etc. need.
Understood. Have you guys put in your request as yet during those consultations, and outside of the loan that you highlighted, what were some of the recommendations that you would have brought to the Division of Finance for the industry?
Well, a lot of what we've recommended is to get the room stock back in order and to get the critical areas of the island back in order. So if you go to a beach facility, for example, and the toilets have been out for the last 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, whatever it is, since before COVID. All of these are parts, the critical parts of tourism that need to be dealt with. You have the taxi operators, you have the maxi taxi operators. Again, all of these have been requests that have been made over time to get all these things fixed. It's just every little part of tourism needs to be dealt with to get Tobago back the way it is. You look at all the other islands in the Caribbean, they're growing with double-digit growth in tourism. Tobago is lagging behind. Even Trinidad is moving more ahead than Tobago as it relates to tourism. So we need to get from the lowest low that we are last year back up to where we were. I mean, you look at 12,000 international passengers in 2025, where our high was somewhere around 96,000 international passengers. We need to get that back. Now, also one of the critical areas, and we've discussed this in our meetings with Caribbean Airlines, is the air bridge. Prior to COVID, we had 24 round-trip flights between Trinidad and Tobago on the air bridge. Right now, we have 13. That has not increased except for one or two flights over the last 2 years. So you have a critical area where the flights come into Port of Spain, into Piarco, and we can't make the connections into Tobago because there are not enough flights. So there's chicken and egg situations, and we have to address it all holistically. Otherwise, we are not going to move Tobago's tourism forward.
Right. A lot of persons, have spoken about the fact that during the October Carnival, there's often quite a surge in tourism on the island, but the persons that are within the industry have also come out to say that surge is not enough to sustain Tobago's tourism overall, and the very same momentum being placed towards Tobago's Carnival, and that huge influx of persons coming onto the island needs to somehow be placed year-round. What are some of the suggestions or strategies that the association has to maintain that momentum from January straight down to December?
Tobago cannot depend on events like Carnival or Easter, these long weekends, these simple events. Because at the end of the day, we have 52 weeks in the year, and we need to maintain tourism 52 weeks of the year. Some properties, whether they're small or big, close for certain periods of time because there's not enough activity on the island. So the same amount of things that we put into Carnival or Easter, we need to put that into different times of the year to keep Tobago going. Why should we only look at goat racing over Easter as a primary event happening? Why can't we move goat racing around the island and have it in different places? You have cultural tourism all the way around with the Heritage Festival and all of that. You're hearing more about Carnival than you're hearing about Heritage. You're hearing more of, we have deep sea fishing. We have all the sites in Tobago. People want to go to nylon pool, but we are not pushing all that we have. And if we start pushing all that we have year round, we should be able to turn it around and have year round tourism.
Understood. And, even as you look at the history of what is expected in the budget and what you actually get, is there any strategy moving forward to continue advocating for this sitting THA to really stick to the plan and focus on doing or delivering what it is that they say they will deliver for the tourism sector?
The THA at the end of the day has to sit more often with the tourism sector, with the players within the tourism sector, and not just a few people involved in it. You have to listen to the entire spectrum of all the guest houses, the bed and breakfast, the villas. You have to listen to everybody concerned, because you can't just depend on hearing what the executive of the Hotel and Tourism Association are doing. You have to listen to the wider membership. You have to work with the private sector and listen to the private sector of their needs, and not go outside of that. The private sector is here dealing with tourism. You need to deal with us on the tourism a lot more frequently, but to the wider audience of the membership in the association and beyond that as well. There's a lot to fix. It can't be done in one day, but at the end of the day, if we all work together, tourism will be built.
Excellent. Even as we wrap up our discussion this morning, is there anything that you want to say to our viewers looking on, some of the policymakers heading into this budget for fiscal 2026-2027?
Well, what I would close with is the SOE. We have to look at a different strategy. The SOE is not working. We need to deal with what is happening with crime on the island, and the SOE is a plaster. It's not going to fix it, right? We know who the criminals are. Let's deal with that, and let's get Tobago moving, and Trinidad moving for that matter. You have a situation where tourists are not going to come to an island or a country that has a SOE, and we all know it is not working. So we're begging the government to not extend it and deal with crime in a different way. Enforce the laws. You have gang-related laws and all of that. Deal with it in that way. Don't put the whole country at risk, especially when we are trying to grow tourism in Trinidad and Tobago.
Understood. Again, we want to thank you so much, Mr. McLean, for always making the time to come on and chat with us about what's happening within the hotel and tourism industry here on the island of Tobago. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a quick break right here, and we'll be back after this. See you soon.
Our world is filled with rhythm. Rhythm that's unapologetic, infectious, timeless. Rhythm is commitment in action. It's how we show up for each other with unrelenting support that goes the distance. Rhythm lives in the tiny beats of our most intimate moments and the seismic roars of our biggest achievements. Rhythm is resilience in motion. So even when things go out of sync, we do what it takes to bring the rhythm back. At Flow, we understand your rhythm because we live it. That's why we're dedicated to building a network as resilient as you, with a team of familiar faces working every day to keep you on beat. You're at the heart of everything we do, and our commitment is to keep your rhythm flowing, no matter what.
Coming up, hot plates, cold drinks, and chill vibes were the order of the month in Antigua and Barbuda. Top chefs, tasty menus, influencers, and foodies. The boxes were ticked, kitchens buzzing, and grills fired up. It's the one and only Antigua and Barbuda Culinary Month with Caribbean Passport TV on this station.
Stay tuned for what's coming next.
Step out of my dreams to my real life. Girl, I wanna know you feel like, yeah. Come closer to me, let the stars align, yeah. In the middle of the night, you bring the sunshine. Miss Lady, she have a pot on the fire, burn a flame when she cooking.
My name is Carpage. I'm the head coach of St. Jago High School boys track and field team.
My name is Joseph Small. I am the head coach of the girls female program. Preparing an athlete is not just running on the track. You have the mental aspect, you have the nutrition aspect, and you have the support and the motivation. So there's a lot of factors that we have to look into, and we have to try to see how best we can deal with them as best as possible.
Be viewing Caribbean Medical TV on this station.
Sofa Factory is here in Tobago. Conveniently located Montessori Drive, Glen Road, Scarborough. Up to 20% off on select sofas for customization. Deals on some sofas from as low as $4,000 until stocks last. 10% off on all wardrobes. Half off on shower heads with the purchase of a vanity set. Come in and experience the new way to shop for furniture and see the quality in person.
Start to rise, the energy fill the skies. I say thanks for favor. one people strong, and the vibes is never wrong. We are beauty, we are power. We are people in the sun. We are beaches, we are rivers. We are melanated ones. We special and there is no denying. Tobago is number one. I am you and you are me. Together we stronger. Good morning, Tobago. Good morning, Tobago. Good morning, Tobago.
Good morning, and welcome back to Good Morning Tobago right here on Tobago Updates. Ladies and gentlemen, this morning we continue our conversations and we are chatting a bit about the extension or the request for an extension for the state of emergency in Trinidad and Tobago. And who else to have that conversation with me this morning other than the former Commissioner of Police, Mr. Gary Griffith. Good morning and welcome.
Hi, good morning. Good morning
Right.
to you and your viewers.
Right. So we have had a number of conversations here on Tobago Update, specifically as it pertains to some of the technologies that you would have implemented during your time as Commissioner of Police, some of the innovative ways of fighting crime. And you've often said that a state of emergency is not a crime fighting strategy, but yet we see the longest extension of a state of emergency in the history of Trinidad and Tobago happening. Good morning and welcome.
Yes, and you're correct. I've always said, even as back in 2010, as National Security Advisor, I advised the Prime Minister at the time that I do not see a SOE being a crime-fighting tool. I always see that a state of emergency being used to fight crime is an indication of failure by those who head law enforcement in a country. Because law enforcement heads, especially that of the Commissioner of Police, you are given immense authority and powers. Apart from 7,500 able-bodied individuals, you have a lot of authority to be able to be involved in things such as interception, the access of technology, and you have to be very strategic how to utilize your resources in an effective and efficient manner. If you fail to do that, and crime continues to increase, it means that you have failed as a Commissioner of Police, you have failed as a Security Minister. And therein lies the problem. Because of the failure of those in authority and law enforcement to do their job based on the authority that they presently have in the Constitution, they have gone to the Prime Minister and said, we are not capable, we are failing, we do not know what to do to reduce crime. So what we need is a state of emergency. So this Commissioner of Police, he has become the SOE COP. His one crime plan alone is a state of emergency. That's the only thing he knows to do. And the disadvantage to this is that when you hear, again, this has become very political, where persons who are blindly supportive of the government are making comments on social media. The only people who should have a problem with the SOE are criminals. It shows how clueless some people really are, because granted that a state of emergency, it has probably assisted in crime, in reduction of murders. But when you have a state of emergency, it will trigger travel advisories around the world that by and large will then affect tourism, it affects trade, it affects the economy, it affects investment. Tobago is going to be hit hard because of it. Who will want to come to a place where it is that a government and a country, the state is stating, we are unable to secure our country, so we have to put a state of emergency because of the crime situation. That obviously would affect so many things in Trinidad and Tobago. When you do that, it affects your income. Your income now cannot be balanced with your expenditure, which will affect your budget, which becomes a byproduct towards the increase in the cost of goods and services, a byproduct towards inflation or unemployment. And all of this becomes byproduct towards causing crime to increase. So the state of emergency eventually is going to be a situation that is going to increase crime. And again, when it is that you have this state of emergency, the only reason this is done, as I said, is because of the failure of those in authority to do their job based on what they presently have, the authority that they have, without having a a law that is now going to make it practical that for any citizen of this country, you can be arrested, you can be put on a detention order without evidence. That's a danger to a state of emergency, because a state of emergency means that I can now arrest you based on perception, based on rumor, based on intelligence. And that is now taken away your most fundamental right, which is that of freedom. And and I'm not saying, thankfully, I do not think that the minister and the commissioner are like that. But this is the first step towards a dictatorial country around the world, when it is you take away that person's right for natural justice to defend himself and to make sure that I can only be incarcerated based on evidence. The state of emergency means, based on intelligence, I find that you could now be incarcerated indefinitely. That is very dangerous. And what makes it worse is when 250 persons like this have been arrested and held, and there's no evidence, it means that when they come out, each of them are going to sue the state about $1 million, and it's now going to cost the taxpayers about $250 million in damages based on wrongful arrest. And that again becomes another byproduct to increase crime.
Understood. And when we look globally at the increase in technology, particularly crime fighting technology and the integration of CCTV cameras and facial recognition, is it that we in Trinidad and Tobago are not investing in this type of technology? Are we not well versed in the use of the technology? Or is it that the persons who are in authority are not doing the research or taking the trips globally, having those international connections to bring not only that technology but that level of new technology to the crime fighting strategy for Trinidad and Tobago?
Well, those 4 questions you asked, you're correct in all 4. It's a package of all. Remember, this commissioner of police was middle management. He was holding a junior position. He probably was in charge of about 10 men. Now he's in charge of 7,500. He had a budget. The Minister of Homeland Security had a budget of about 100 TT when he was a junior or middle management officer in the police service. Now he's in command of 20,000 persons with a budget of 6,000 million. They do not have the capability to understand. So being in junior middle management, they never understood international best practice. That's why the commissioner foolishly said he saw no reason why the officers should not have been immediately removed from duty when in the Samaru shooting. They are not accustomed to international best practice. They do not understand joint operations. They don't understand systems to measure performance, make police officers accountable. They lack the leadership skill where that is demanded for persons who hold that position. In the Ministry of National Security or Homeland Security, there are about 20,000 persons that are in the private and public sector, and 19,999 must have minimum qualification. The only person who has no qualification required in any arm of the protective services is the minister, and that I think is something that should be addressed. So if they do not have the capability, and you would have seen it, the body camera situation. I mean, that recent shooting in Tobago by a police officer, I do not know if that officer was on duty, but had he been on duty and he did not have a body camera, that is an immediate situation that this commissioner of police should be removed from office, because you inherited 1,200 body cameras. You deliberately refused to utilize the cameras. You misled the country by stating that the body cameras were not good, when you could type GTEC and Axon and see that these are the top body cameras used by most US police departments. And then you said that, well, they could turn it on and turn it off, which is what's supposed to be done. And a year later, you're in office and you have not been able to acquire 1 extra body camera to utilize. So all of these things, it shows their fear for technology. The National Operations Center is 500 million TT. We paid for that. I actually acquired it as the line minister. And that is supposed to deal with traffic congestion, dealing with floods, natural, man-made disaster, joint operations, intelligence gathering, a fusion center. The Minister of Homeland Security, because his only training has been as junior middle management in police, he has misled the Prime Minister by trying to turn that now into a dispatch unit. He's so clueless. That is what the E999 is for. And then you hand it over to an individual who still walks around with a World War II walkie-talkie. Good morning, Mr. Johnny Abraham. I love you. Hope you have a great day. Therein lies the problem. The technology that we had that put an end to kidnapping. We were able to solve 12 kidnappings, kick down the door, arrest the kidnappers, rescue the victim because of technology. Now kidnapping has returned. So kidnapping, home invasion, extortion, you don't have a rapid response. People have to go back and call police stations to get a response to a distress call. There's no operations center that monitors all the police vehicles through GPS tracking to ensure they stay in their area of responsibility. It is total lack of them understanding technology. And that has a big part to play with both the commissioner and the minister telling the prime minister, we don't know what to do, we are clueless, so the best thing to do is to call a state of emergency to keep those guys incarcerated.
Right, and let's touch a bit on one of the things that you talked about there in terms of that intersection between security and technology, intelligence gathering, and just overall data management in Trinidad and Tobago. We have a situation where the government continues to talk about that whole push towards digitization and modernization. But one of the key areas that can be used to demonstrate that digitization is the policing service in Trinidad and Tobago. Do you think that there is that need for more infrastructure and investment to go towards building out that police technology center and intelligence center that you spoke about that once existed?
Yeah, definitely. And again, and it shows the sorry to say, the incompetence of the line minister and the commissioner. They want to increase the police service by 2,300. That's going to cost the taxpayers hundreds upon hundreds of millions per annum in salaries alone. If that was used in technology, the same 7,500 police officers and also all members of the Army, Police, Customs, Immigration, Coast Guard, Fire Services, prisons, they will have all the technology, the equipment, the tools, the bulletproof vests, the body cameras, everything to lift the standard. But they don't do that. So because of old school, let's put more boots on the ground. And the more boots on the ground, we have police officers utilizing bulletproof vests that are expired several years ago. We have police officers that are not being able to be trained in understanding minimum use of force policy. We have police officers that should be given the opportunity to have international training. You're going to diminish that by now trying to increase salaries by hundreds of millions of dollars to bring in more boots on the ground. When you could see that our police service, we have 7,500 police officers to secure 1.4 million people. New York City has 35,000 police officers to secure almost 8 million. So we are on par with probably the largest number of police officers in relation to population or density. And because of that, it shows the ignorance in understanding what we need to do is to enhance quality rather than to increase quantity. They do not understand that. And that is where the technology comes in. And it can be done. I discovered over 100 million TT in overtime corruption in the police service. Just about a couple hundred police officers claiming they're working 24 hours a day, 30 days a month, getting $80,000 a month when they should be getting 10 to 15. When I put an end to that, I was able to utilize that 100 million to get 1,200 body cameras, to get tasers, to get pepper spray, to put GPS tracking on all the police vehicles. So if a police vehicle is going 80 miles per hour, 4 p.m. on Ryson Road on a Friday, and there's not a distress call, we know you're just doing it to beat the traffic. We can make sure you stay in your area of responsibility. So if there's a 999 distress call, we can look at the police vehicle in closest proximity to ensure a less than 5-minute response to most distress calls. That played a big part towards reducing crime because the criminals realized there was a deterrent. You could jump over the wall, we can't stop you. By the time you jump back over, we'll be there waiting on you. Those are the type of technology that would have been used. The dashboard cameras on the police vehicles, you remove that. We had an operational command center looking at all the cameras, looking at the call and being able to make sure there's a proper response. All of these things have stopped, which is why now you're seeing everywhere you turn, you're seeing more police, more unmarked vehicles with blue lights and sirens blazing all over the country because there's no GPS tracking on them. You don't know who they are, and sometimes they're just doing it to beat the traffic, which again shows the ignorance in those in authority to understand how to appreciate and embrace technology for law enforcement.
Understood. Former Commissioner of Police, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back as we continue on this conversation, particularly as it pertains to some of those protests that we've seen happening in Trinidad and Tobago of late, and a recent activity that happened in Tobago yesterday. We'll be chatting about that when we get back after this break. See you soon.
Nice.
If I have to call a supervisor one more time to sign off on a customer because their financials are in a mess, I will scream.
Hey, don't scream in a bank. That have lock up in it.
It's either they're not registered properly, or you know what? We could just forget about annual returns, right?
Compliance is a bad word to most of them. All your compliance out of here. But let me eat.
What is wrong with Trinbagonians? I mean, it has so much help they could get out there.
Well, you know, Trinis, we don't like to spend we money.
But you know what? Be comfortable with losing we money. That make it any financial
What people should do is call Anderson in Trinidad and Tobago.
Wait, what? Anderson in Trinidad and Tobago?
Anderson in Trinidad and Tobago Tax and Accounting Services. Yeah, they offer help from registering your business to filing your tax. My lunch is over.
Wait, tell me more.
No, go and scream in the bank. You go and scream in the bank.
No, Antoine, don't get one sooner.
Make your goals a reality this season with Mount Pleasant Credit Union. Tobago's choice, we got you smiling. Come and feel that mid-year feeling, oh yeah. Mid-year island dreams, we make it easy. $20,000 to $100,000. Come and see, we warm hearts, bright plans, your goals grow. Mount Pleasant Credit Union, Tobago's choice. You know, every loan wants to prove more reasons to celebrate. Chance to win big, doesn't that feel great? Up to $3,500 in exciting gift certificates. Share investment starts as low as $2,500. Mid-year island dreams, we make it easy. $20,000 to $100,000. Come and see, we warm hearts, bright plans. Let your goals grow. Whoa. Mount Pleasant Credit Union, Tobago's choice, you know.
Coming up, hot plates, cold drinks, and chilled vibes were the order of the month in Antigua and Barbuda. Top chefs, tasty menus, influencers, and foodies. The boxes were ticked, kitchens buzzing, and grills fired up. It's the one and only Antigua and Barbuda Culinary Month with Caribbean Passport TV on this station.
Stay tuned for what's coming next.
Looking for office attire or worship apparel, then come to Tia's Classic Closet. Shopping for casual clothing or just want to dress down. Big discount, so it's you on clothing and comfortable shoes. Get some wonderful accessories to match your attire. Come to Tia's Classic Closet at 39 Montgomery Road. Opening hours daily from 9:30 to 5:30. For more information, call 710-168-9999999.
From the reef to the road.
From the reef to the road.
From the reef to the road. Tobago calling. Sweet vibes, sweet wine, everybody falling. We bring the culture straight to you. Tobago updates, we keeping it true.
Oh gosh, Tobago updates. On the screen, there we go. You're home for October, carnival show. From the big stage, shine to the road line. We bring Tobago to the world in real time.
Tobago updates, Tobago updates. Carnival 2026, we set the pace. Wave your flag, anywhere you're there. Island love streaming all around you. Picking long on for the rhythm start.
Tobago updates, Caribbean art.
Good morning and welcome back to Good Morning Tobago right here on Tobago Updates. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been chatting with the former Commissioner of Police, Mr. Gary Griffith, and we've been talking a bit about that extension request for the state of emergency in Trinidad and Tobago. And he's often said time and time again that a state of emergency is not a crime-fighting tool or mechanism, although it may have some short-term gains. Welcome back to the show, Mr. Gary Griffith. Now, before the break, we've promised to extend our conversation and chat a bit about some of the protests that have been happening even throughout the state of emergency. And do you think that this has a role to play in the request for an extension for the state of emergency? A lot of persons are speculating that if the state of emergency does end, we may see a huge surge in those protests, and there might be some type of move towards suppressing a lot of those protests. Do you agree?
Yeah, definitely. Again, because of the inability of this present commissioner to understand the importance of freedom of speech, because what he's doing, he is utilizing very outdated colonial laws that we have in this country since the 1930s that have never been amended. We still have laws where two young boys could be at a corner and they could be charged for loitering. We still have laws that if it is you argue with a police officer, you can be arrested for obstruction. If it is that you're there and you're just cursed, if you get frustrated, a police officer fired a shot close to the location of the spouse of a man. The man say, "What is so and so," and he gets arrested because he used obscene language. So this commissioner is very old school. He is making the most of outdated laws, and all that will do is that it will further frustrate the public. You have to know, sometimes you have to read the room. He does not understand how to read the room, because you have to look at the persons who are making these protests. These are not gang members. These are like that situation with Alicia Phillip. I think my personal view, it was done in a wrong manner. All that he did is that he turned them into heroes. And sometimes people in these protests, they do that deliberately in the expectation and hope that the police will be arrogant and ignorant and aggressive, and they will arrest them, and then all of a sudden they become a hero because now they see themselves as being, through the eyes of the country, as the victim. I had a similar situation. A perfect example of that was during the period with Black Lives Matter, where we had the problem with white police officers in the United States involved in virtual abuse of authority over Afro-Americans. And we had hundreds of Trinidadian citizens and Tobagonians that decided to buy that fight. And I could have easily stopped the protest in the same way because they wanted to protest outside the U.S. Embassy. But I knew exactly that's what they wanted. They wanted to have police block you with tear gas and riot squad and have it all videotaped and say, see, Trinidad is no different. I didn't take the bait. I allowed them to protest. And what I did, I walked through the crowd and I gave them the assurance, we will not allow what we saw in the United States to happen here under my watch. That is leadership. That is how you have to know to read the room. His concept now is to reach the point where you're trying to stop persons from protesting outside certain areas. So 10 young girls and her mother and a couple of friends protesting outside the Ministry of Finance is a national security threat. You cannot be so fearful. You cannot be so clueless to understand law enforcement. Bringing a riot squad to deal with a handful of persons who are unarmed and not being aggressive shows abuse of authority. And so you have to read the room. The riot squad is there in case you see persons that intend to be very aggressive, violent, and so forth. So he does all right. So Alicia Phillip and these girls are protesting. Send the riot squad out for them and lock them up and take them. That is not good policing. You have the authority to do so. But again, as I've always said, the most dangerous thing is to give an ignorant person authority. You have to know to utilize your authority in such a way to win over public trust and confidence. When I took over as commissioner, public trust was 14%. Stephen Williams was not like that. It's just that the 14% was because of his failure to be able to be successful in operationalizing the police service. When I left, it was almost 60%. And these are the same police officers. So before the public knocks the police officers, it was 7,200 of the 7,500 police officers. Just a few years ago, you all saw public trust and confidence at about 60%. Why it is less than 8% is not the difference in the police officers, but a difference in leadership and how the commissioner speaks. Every comment he makes is about jail not nice. I have handcuffs all here. I have extra place in the cell. I will lock all you up. That old-time, arrogant type of policing is not the way to go in modern-day, 21st century, intelligence-driven, predictive policing.
Understood. And particularly as it pertains to the events that took place in Tobago yesterday in Castara. Now, we've seen something that we haven't seen in a while. Immediately, the officer is goes into custody for questioning for this case. We are still not aware of the situation or the circumstances surrounding the shooting. You know, we're not sure if the police officer was on duty or if he was off duty and had his firearm. We're not sure if he is authorized to have a firearm when off duty. So with all these questions looming, persons are asking, are we seeing this level of swift movement because of the precedent that has been set with the Samaru case and the police trying to have that kind of PR or management of its image during this time? What is really happening? What can truly explain what we're seeing in that situation?
Well, again, if it is that this police officer was on duty and he did not have the body camera, this fault lies fully on the Commissioner of Police for his refusal to utilize the 1,200 body cameras that were provided for him, that he has refused to use. If it is that the police officer was not on duty, or it was his private firearm, or it was a police firearm he had, all of these things could only come about based on the police being honest, open, and transparent. And transparency is very critical. You have to be honest. You can't just try to find a way to bury the problem. It has to be dealt with in a manner that will allow the public to believe that there's no cover-up, that there's a proper situation and a proper precedent that must be set. A perfect example would have been the Samaru shooting. I mean, I don't want to continue to dwell on it, but something that is blatant, that has nothing to do with the actual case itself, is the comment made by the commissioner prior to the incident, when he said, well, I don't know what happened 5 minutes before the incident. You know, when you hear a commissioner of police say that, it shows the man's ignorance in understanding minimum use of force. Someone could do whatever they want, and at the time when it is when you confront them and you corner them, if it is that they are not a threat to you, you cannot utilize and see what happened in the past to justify what happened presently. And so all of those things, there's this situation with minimum use of force in that same video where the shooting stopped, the two individuals were neutralized, and a police officer put down his automatic weapon when it was a stoppage or he ran out of ammo, drew his sidearm, cocked it, and then started firing several seconds after. That is excessive use of force. And all of these things, it shows instead of the commissioner explaining this, justifying, he's trying to state, well, I saw no reason for any action to be taken on these police officers, which is in stark contrast to international best practice, which shows, again, the puppet that we see now in the Police Welfare Association, who agreed with the Commissioner of Police. So these matters must be dealt with. People, again, before people decide to throw point fingers at me, I had the exact situation as commissioner in the Mofa shooting. Within 3 hours, all 18 were immediately suspended, and it was not because of admission of guilt or targeting. It is the basic practice that must be done. You see a video footage of police officers shooting a car with persons in it. You can't have them still on duty. So those are the type of things that is what caused public trust and confidence to move from 14 to 60%. Saying that I see no reason why any action should be taken, or trying to hold on to a matter and not be able to bring it to the forefront to the public to ensure transparency, such as this incident in Tobago, is what will cause public trust to go down to less than 8%. So it is hope that the hierarchy in Tobago will do the right thing. They cannot and must not say anything until they could confirm all the facts. If it is that the person is charged, now you could call his name and you can explain. Until then, I think it's best for them that we wait, but it is hope that there's not a repeat of the ball dropping that we saw that took place with the Samaru shooting.
Understood. And even as we round off our discussion, I want to apologize. That shooting took place in Bloody Bay, actually. But when we look at this Samaru case, I know that you don't want to harp on it for too long, but we saw videos being circulated about the defense team utilizing a UK-based company to try to interpret the video to understand where some of the shots actually came from, to try and use it as evidence in court. Is this type of video admissible in court? And how can the Trinidad and Tobago TTPS kind of counter such a video where you're actually seeing the shooting before your very eyes?
Yeah, and again, I think it was unfortunate because whoever did that and sent it to the public, you're trying to influence the public into, and that shouldn't be done. A matter as some should say, it should not be in any way trying be able to push out the evidence. I hope it is not the defense that would have done that. But in the same manner, we saw similar videos that you could see obviously and listen to the voice, you knew it was a police officer. And the video showed the glass shattering out. And you hear the ignorance of this police officer stating that if the glass shoots out, it means that the shot came from inside, which is not true. Because if it is you fire into a vehicle, the glass on a window will shatter inside and outside because of the shock waves. So it means that a lot of people are just trying to influence the public, try to win over the court of public opinion, which should not be the case. My take on it was always never I had full trust and confidence in the DPP, but he will only make a decision based on the information that was brought forward to him. My take on it has always been that the comments made by the commissioner was wrong to speak about what happened before, to state also that he saw no reason for action to be taken on the police officers. There was a blatant degree of bias and ignorance in understanding international best practice. The police officer who drew his sidearm several seconds after the shooting stopped, which was excessive use of force. The police officers' incompetence and not understanding, because let's say that they were correct and they said that their life was under threat and the person was firing at them. Police officers in basic training, you cannot and should not have yourself exposed in the open air. Oh, for God's sake, people, you all see Chicago PD, you see Miami SVU, you see all of these shows. That's the most basic drill. You're under fire, you're going to cover yourself from fire and cover yourself from view. These three guys watched too many Rambo movies. They figured that the bad guys will be shooting and they won't get touched. All of that was bad policing drills, bad policing techniques, if what they said was true. Those are the things I can speak about as it pertains to the operational system. Whether it is somebody is guilty or not, whether the person should be charged or not, that's for the DPP and the court. But right now, again, it is important for persons to understand that what you're seeing, the court of public opinion is judging this matter. I just hope that the truth will come out. One of the biggest concerns I always had was why it is that U.S. police officers will not inform the person who you claim did this and not inform her for the 6 days she was in the hospital. Why did you release her? Why did you not charge her? Why did you not tell her that you found a firearm? Why did you allow her to leave the country? Especially in a time in a state of emergency where people are being incarcerated left, right, and center based on intelligence. It doesn't make sense.
Understood. Well, we want to thank you again for being here and chatting with us and giving us some of your insight as it pertains to that extension of the state of emergency. Ladies and gentlemen, this morning, this is where we end our program. We want to thank you for your likes, your shares, and your comments, and all that you have been doing and continue to do to make Tobago Updates the #1 broadcaster here on the island of Tobago. Again, I am Chanel Felix, and have a great day.
Tobago